Hello guys, my name is basically Keith, aka Bon Keto, aka a Winston main who never uploads. If you clicked this video, you probably wanted to learn how to play this beautiful scientist, and I'm here to tell you how. You can main him, one-trick him, I'll show you the secret ways of the peanut butter. But before we cover the basics, let's first make some important preparations that will definitely help improve your gameplay and help you have a lot more fun. Trust me. Cue the music.
What's going on? Oh yeah! What? I don't understand what's going on here. Oh yeah!
Alright, now that we have done our very important preparations, it's time we embark on our monkey adventure. As Winston, you're the no-aim, full-brain Winston main. You're the monkey with a plan, and your weapon of choice is the Tesla cannon, aka the tickle gun, perfectly designed at tickling one or more enemies. Now, before I cover the basic mechanics of Winston and all his abilities, let me first quickly explain what kind of role you have to perform as Winston. As Winston, you can provide consistent damage for your team because your tickle gun can tickle multiple enemies in a wide area, and because all of your attacks go through barriers, making you surprisingly decent against a barrier heavy comp. You're also what's called a dive hero, meaning you get in the enemy backline and either try to get a pick or just annoy them for as long as possible. So the longer you can annoy the enemy's supports and DPS, the better you do your job as Winston basically. Now as Winston, it's also important that you secure the high ground, because the high ground is quite important to anyone who has it. For example, if that would be an enemy DPS or an enemy support, they could do a lot of healing and a lot of damage, and get also picks on my team quite easy. So you want to jump on them, contest them, and either try to fend them off or rearrange their molecules. Now, if it was your team who has the high ground, then you either have the option of defending them from the enemy or going in the enemy backline. That depends on how able you are to defend your team from the enemy on the high ground, and how easy it is for you to get in the backline and annoy the backline. Anyway, without further ado, let's cover Winston's abilities. Now, although Winston has no secondary fire, because melee attacks are so important as Winston, you can almost view his melee attack as his secondary fire, meaning the two ways you'll be attacking enemies mostly is by tickling them and by fisting them. Now unfortunately, tickling enemies with your tickle gun doesn't do a lot of damage for some reason. It's even 20% less effective against armor, meaning armor targets or tanks or just enemies that get healed will most likely survive your annoying presence. However, There is a small trick that can help you with this. Allow me to show. If you fist enemies between tickling them, not only will you do slightly more damage, but you also get to conserve your ammo, meaning your total DPS and your total annoyance will go up by quite a bit. Now let's talk about Winston's first ability, his jump pack, aka his super jump. This ability is great at taking high ground, jumping on an enemy, or jumping away from an enemy if you get low. You can also use it as a combination of the three, but that is up to you. Now there are a few important jump mechanics that you need to know as Winston. First of all, if you land on an opponent, you knock them back and do up to 40 damage. However, if you melee an opponent just before you land on them, you will still do the melee damage, but the animation of the melee will get cancelled, like this. And that way you can do up to 70 damage. If you combine that with tickling and fisting them, you can kill squishy opponents pretty decently quickly. Now there are another few things to remember about Winston's jump. For example, depending on how high or how low you look, you'll do different kinds of jumps. For example, looking straight forward will just give you a quick jump low above the air and make you land very quickly and make you go about 20 meters forward. But if you look a little bit up before you jump, you'll go a lot higher and be in the air for a little bit longer. And if you just look straight up, you go the highest and be in the air for the longest, but cover a little bit less distance. Now another important thing to remember about Winston's jump is that you can adjust it mid-air by moving. For example, if I just jump like this without using any movement whatsoever, I make a big arc in the air. However, if I move backwards while jumping like that, I basically stay on the same spot. And if I move sideways, I move a lot to the left or right. Now, moving forward while jumping does not increase your momentum and will not make you go further away. However, if you want to go further away with your jump, you can use your normal jump right at the end and momentum will get carried over a little bit in that jump. And those were the jump mechanics of Winston. Getting good with these mechanics by getting better at adjusting your jump, choosing the right angle, will definitely help you land more precisely on enemies and make you do more precise jumps, making you a lot better at Winston. Now let's go over to Winston's final ability, his bubble. Now Winston's final ability, apart from his ultimate, is his bubble. Technically it's called a barrier projector, but as you can see right here, it is literally a bubble. So how do we use Winston's bubble? Well, let me first talk to you about a few ways you should not use your bubble. Don't use your bubble as a Reinhardt shield and frontline with it and help your team get through chokes. And those were all the ways you should not use a bubble. It were quite a few of them, but I'm sure you can remember the ways you should not use a bubble. Now let's get over to the strengths of the bubble and mechanics you should use. Winston's bubble can be quite powerful at blocking cooldowns. Not necessarily damage, but mostly the abilities from enemies. Especially the damage and abilities from the backline, the supports and the DPS. It's also extremely useful at isolating targets, surrounding them with a barrier, preventing them from getting healed or supported by their team. Now, it is very important to remember that enemies, like these bots, these enemy bots, can walk in and out of your bubble. Meaning, they can easily walk in your bubble and just start shooting you from there. So, how do you prevent that from happening? Well, if they're in the bubble, you go out. If they're out of the bubble, you go in. If they're in, you go out, and you strafe around the edge of the bubble, like that, around the bubble, to prevent them from damaging you too much. And that is basically how you use the bubble. You use it to defend yourself in the backline, isolate targets, and just block cooldowns. Okay, so now that we finally know everything about fisting, tickling, jumping, and bubbling, I should probably cover the specific hero matchups, talking about which one are favorable and unfavorable, and talking about how to play against every hero. But in all honesty, you should probably just watch a one tip versus every hero video from CarQ. Trust me, you'll be a lot better off. But allow me to generalize it. If an enemy has a shotgun, it will do a whole lot of damage to you and kill you very quickly, and that is no bueno. If an enemy has armor, you do almost no damage against it, and that is no bueno. If an enemy has superior mobility, you can never damage it because you are short range and they have better mobility than you. That is no bueno. If an enemy has a lot of CC, you are unable to play the game and are unable to move. And because you rely on movement, that is no bueno. However, if the enemy has little to no mobility, relies on a barrier to be effective, or it's just part of their kit, or relies on mid to long range damage, you are quite good against it, with the exception of Passion, who is the hardest counter to you, and probably the hardest counter in the history of counters. So, without further ado, let's cover Winston's final ability, or his final thing, his ultimate. Now let's cover the hardest part of Winston, his Primal Rage. Winston's Primal Rage, as you may guess, makes him very angry. It also gives him an instant 1000 HP and a 2-second cooldown on his jump, granting him a lot of survivability and mobility. It also makes his punches pull people around now and do up to 60 damage, allowing you to fist the enemy even harder. Now, having your ultimate can allow you to be a lot more aggressive as Winston. Here are some examples you can use your ultimate for. Now, Winston's ultimate is great at stalling objectives or pooping people off an objective, or pooping people off the map. Now, in general, the best value you can get from your ultimate is if you can secure one or more kills, or if you can make a setup for your teammates. It is also important to remember that you should not use your ultimate usually if your teammates are dying or are just dead. That's because you cannot really frag that easy with your ultimate, and you will mostly be feeding a lot of ult charge at best and get out alive. It is also important that you focus one target, preferably one that you can kill. If there are no killable targets, just try to mess people around as best as you can. Now, getting good with Winston's ultimate is mostly a matter of practice. The better you get at jumping on enemies, and the better you get at following people as you punch them, the better you get as Winston in general. There are a few tips you can try, however. For example, if you punch an enemy, you can try to land where they will go. And if you can predict where they will land, you can do your damage the quickest, like this. You can also try to punch an enemy mid-air as you first punch them, but that is quite hard to do. However, the very easiest and best thing you can do is just punch them in a corner and keep fisting them. And those were all the basics and abilities of Winston. You're now ready to become a Winston one-trick or a Winston main and learn the ancient ways of the peanut butter. So get out there and start terrorizing ranked. And if you like this tutorial and want to see more maybe, I may make a part 2. Also, consider leaving a like or even subscribe. But that's it for the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed the ride. And remember, playing games is meant to be fun. So play what you enjoy. Goodbye, everyone.